Hey G-fans, as many of you may know, recently there's been a sort of size race between the different incarnations of Godzilla. The original Showa era G stood at a mere 50 meters tall, yet the Heisei version, a powered up kaiju, would stand at double the height, coming in at a towering 100 meters. After this, most films would return the Big G back to a smaller 50 to 60 meter size. However, for his farewell party, Final Wars, we would see Godzilla out walking tall again, back at his Heisei height of 100 meters. Legendary's Godzilla 2014 would put its claim on the biggest G yet, coming in at 355 feet or just over 108 meters. Although not to be outdone, the Japanese would fire back with Shin Godzilla, slightly topping the American Godzilla, coming in at just under 389 feet or 118.5 meters. We're not going to count Godzilla Earth since it's from the anime and not the live action universe, but it beats everything here at just over 300 meters. Yet we've learned recently that Godzilla has grown since we last saw him in 2014, or has he? We'll discuss how that growth spurt happens later in the video, and how this Godzilla is now the tallest one to ever grace the live action cinema. Recently, we found out from a Japanese publication that Godzilla, at some point during Godzilla King of the Monsters, will go from 355 feet tall, or just over 108 meters, to 393 feet tall, or just shy of 120 meters, staggeringly close to the original 400 feet height that was incorrectly stated by Raymond Burr in the American version of Gojira back in 1956. This would mean that Godzilla has grown a full 38 feet in just 5 years. Now, I know from doing my How Big is Kong of Skull Island video that after explaining how much he's grown up in between Kong Skull Island and the comic book that followed, many of you brought it to my attention that Godzilla is likely growing as well. And I do agree to a point. Godzilla is really old in the legendary universe. His kind is from the Permian time period, which is anywhere from 350 to 400 million years ago. So if he's been growing at this rate the whole time, that just won't work. He'd make Godzilla Earth look like a flea. This is why I believe that if he grew naturally in this 5-year time frame, it was either very little or none at all. The growth is from something else. So spoiler warnings here, but this is just my speculation, so take it how you want, but the growth, I believe, is from a power-up. As discussed in another video, I think that Godzilla is going to get powered up by a nuke to get to that new size and shape. He may even get a second power-up from Rodan and or Mothra, but that remains to be seen. Either way, he's much bigger now, so let's see how he stacks up to get a true feeling of just how big this Godzilla really is. For our first comparison, let's take a look at the AT-AT Walker from the Star Wars universe. These things are huge, standing at a height of around 20 meters or 66 feet tall. Yet even with these enormous machines, Godzilla would be at least 6 times taller, making them look like one of those robotic dog toys. Next up, let's do a comparison from within the Monsterverse and take a look at Kong of Skull Island. When he was last seen on film, Kong stood at 31.6 meters or just under 105 feet tall. Now, even though we don't have an exact height, it's clear that he's still growing. Regardless, at 105 feet tall, he is less than 1/3 the total height of the Big G. He better do some growing if he intends to take on Godzilla in the next film. Okay, so Kong is pretty small next to the Monsterverse G, but how would he look when stood next to the Dragonzord of Power Ranger fame? Well, still pretty big. The Dragonzord is a beast, yet even this Mechagodzilla wannabe would be a better match for Kong than Godzilla, only coming in a bit taller than Kong at 38 meters or 124 feet. Now let's compare the legendary G to the Toho versions from the Showa and Heisei eras. With the Showa era Godzilla coming in at only 50 meters, we're getting close to about half the height of the 2014 Godzilla. But with an extra 38 feet added up, King of the Monsters Godzilla is more than double the height. We'd have to look to the powered up Heisei version of Godzilla in order to finally get a kaiju that could compete with the height of Legendary. But with an 8-meter advantage, we still aren't quite up high enough to see eye to eye yet. So let's take a look at an even bigger kaiju, with the Heisei version of King Ghidorah. Now this would be a better matchup. We finally have something that even the charged up version of legendary Godzilla would have to look up to. At 150 meters, the Heisei King Ghidorah would stand 42 meters or 138 feet taller, That's almost a full Showa Godzilla height advantage. If this sounds crazy, then don't forget that the legendary Ghidorah is even bigger than its Heisei cousin. We've all seen speculation of a crossover with the Pacific Rim universe and the Monsterverse. Well, if they want to do that, they better make some bigger Jaegers. Gypsy Avenger from the second film is pretty big, but at only 268 feet or 81 meters, let's just say they're going to need a much bigger robot or a few more to join in the fight. Yet we can finally get some good competition for a battle if we look to the kaiju from the Pacific Rim universe. With Raijin, this combiner kaiju would be only slightly smaller than the 2014 G, yet we can even go bigger with Slattern, a larger stage 5 kaiju coming in at 596 feet or just over 182 meters. This thing is massive, getting closer to Monsterverse Ghidorah size. When it comes to buildings to put the Monsterverse Godzilla into perspective, let's put the legendary G next to the iconic Tokyo Tower. At a size closer to Earth Godzilla, standing at 333 meters or 1,093 feet, the tower dwarfs the American Godzilla by about 2/3 his size. To get closer in height, we could start with the Statue of Liberty. This monument stands at 305 feet or just shy of 93 meters tall. A nice side-by-side comparison to both the 2014 and 2019 versions of Godzilla. Yet even closer to the Big G's King of the Monsters size is the Great Pyramid of Giza. As of today, it currently stands at 139 meters or 455 feet, only 19 meters taller than the Big G. And there you have it, guys. I hope these size comparisons give you a better understanding of just how big Godzilla of the legendary Monsterverse really is. What other kaiju or titans would you like to see in this size comparison series? I'd love to hear your questions and ideas down in the comments.